I've got a spare inner housing, which I'm actually going to replace with 12-volt LED spotlights. Alright, so there's my viewers, some of you may know, and it's got an LED conversion done by Rob from ADV South Africa. And what that looks like is, ignition on, is that. So you'll notice the headlights are on and the bike isn't running. That's because it's wired directly to the battery with a relay off the ignition. And the reason it's done this way is because, as standard, the BWiz's lights are powered off the stator directly. So at idle, the headlights will kind of pulse and be kind of dim and bright and dim and bright. And as you rev it up, then of course the lights improve as the voltage comes on song. So running it off the battery alleviates that, because LEDs don't like that. But what I'm busy with currently is this. So I've got a spare inner housing, which I'm actually going to replace with 12-volt LED spotlights, because these are a hell of an improvement over stock, but they're not as potent as a projection LED spotlight. So that's what I'm going to give a whirl. So I've got a whole different inner housing, which I'm going to show you what I'm up to now. Alright, as mentioned, there's my inner housing. I'm still busy setting it up because, as you can see, it's a little tall in the top. I'd like to minimize the gap here and kind of get it equidistant all around the circumference of the LEDs as well as the housing. Alright, so that's the rear of the housing. What I've done is I've trimmed a couple of pieces off. There's generally a kind of a vertical section that comes through here to about this height, which I've cut off. And these struts on either side go around about halfway up here as well. Obviously, I've cut those off to allow me to fit a piece of threaded rod from left to right. And I've got a couple of double nuts in there just because I'm worried that it rattles loose with a couple of vibey two-stroke action and a bit of a wheelie here and there. So that's what I'm busy with currently. The height I can adjust one of two ways. So the height, I mean, is this gap here. I don't want to get my finger in there. So I can go about that one of two ways. I can either raise it up by slotting this mounting hole. So there's obviously a 6.5mm hole with an M6 thread going through it. So I can just slot it another 4mm up, which I may do that, or what I may do is I may just put a couple of washers between the plastic housing and that bracket. That'll also raise it up a little bit, and I may do a bit of both, if I'm honest with you, because with this route, when it comes to adjustment, it's a bit tricky to kind of tilt these things up and down. Whereas if I put a couple of washers just in the back as an example, it'll help tilt the headlights down a touch, obviously to stop blinding oncoming traffic. So this should be a nice little project and a bit of an upgrade. Okay, so I've taken out my current headlight assembly. You can see the LED bulbs there with these kind of red anodized bit of cosmetic trickery. Probably just adds to the cost of everything. But what Rob had done is, you can see he's wired everything in on just the yellow and the ground, so that green is disconnected. So I'm going to mirror exactly what he's done with my spare set of connectors, which of course at this point I can't find. Oh, no, too soon. There it is. So those are them. I'm going to wire it in accordingly. Obviously, what I'll do is I'll just de-pin the green connector altogether and take it away. So I only have the yellow and the ground. So that's the plan. Okay, so I've just de-pinned this green wire from the harness, bit of a faff. You can see there's a little brass tab there. So I used a tiny little, the smallest flat screwdriver that I can get my hands on to get in there with a torch, and I try to film it. It's impossible. So the intention is to just depress that tab and literally pull it out, but these things are a hell of a lot stronger than they look. So props to Yamaha for building something fairly solid. Right, here's my very dusty inside of my headlight cowl. So there's the headlight connector that Rob had installed for me, and that's the relay that works off the ignition. So if I turn the ignition on, oh, okay, you probably can't hear it because you can hear the ignition going on and off, but you can definitely hear the relay kind of clicking on and off, and this goes straight down to the battery, and of course it's also wired to the ignition harness. Out of interest, these are the lights that I'm using. Paid all of $60 a pop. And they're actually really nice. That rear kind of casing is all cast aluminium. These little mounting brackets are pretty shitty, truth be told, but thankfully I'm not using them. And they are massively bright. I connected them to that old 12 volt security battery, and they perform magnificently. So super keen to get them in. And out of interest, let's just measure these suckers up, right? So grab a vernier here. This is probably the most important thing when it comes to trying to dial them in. So I say dial them in terms of size. So these are 108.7 mils. So 108, 110, give or take. So anything smaller is obviously going to, look a bit spare considering the housing itself. So I looked long and hard to find these, and thrilled with them. They fit perfectly, stonkingly cheap, and don't look too bad at all. Right, quick test fit. It's all connected. Ignition on. Looking slick, blinding in fact. Yeah, that's really nice, and judging from how it's projecting onto the wall back there, pretty damn good. Alright, and that is pretty much it. You can see the threaded rod goes from the left all the way through to the right, and a couple of little nuts to secure it in place. And the wiring is done, a bit of an extension in the middle here, which is often the case with these Chinese LED kits. But yeah, I'm really thrilled with that. So I'm going to fit it up to the bike. It'll probably need a little bit of twiddling to ensure that the protections are, not smashing oncoming Uber drivers in the eyeballs. But I mean, that's pretty much how it looks, which I think is pretty neat. There's a bit of a recess between this kind of clip-on front cowl, but I'm not entirely disappointed with how it came out. Really nice, in fact. Yeah, I'm thrilled. So I'm going to refit it, and I'll show you shortly. Alright, so she's in and looking pretty damn slick. I haven't tried it with regards to adjustment. They look like they're pointing pretty solidly down, but that was my intention, was to have them pointing down, so it's easy enough for me to kind of just push them back to get the kind of adjustment right. And obviously I'll get the one on the oncoming side a little bit further down. And where's the one on the I guess the passenger side, or the left hand side, that can happily point towards the trees on the odd occasion to kind of give a better field of view on that side. But really, really happy. Let's turn it on. Properly sick. I'm really thrilled with that. Yeah, thanks again to Rob from ADV South Africa for doing the initial slog work in the wiring. For me to install the LEDs was actually a complete and utter walk in the park. Yeah, Yeah, Rob's a freaking genius, I'll tell you that much.